Breaking news! The Detroit Lions just dropped a bombshell that is rocking expectations for training camp across the league. Just when fans thought they had a pretty good idea of how this offseason would play out, the Lions pulled off a major twist, one that could have major implications for player development, roster decisions, and the team's overall competitiveness heading into one of the most anticipated seasons in recent history. Before you continue, make sure you've hit the like button if you agree that the Lions will at least make the playoffs next season. Dude, I believe we can make it to the Super Bowl. If you do too, write this: Go Lions! I believe in the Super Bowl. Well, I hope Jared Goff helps us get there, but we'll get to him in a bit first. I want to talk about something else. The Detroit Lions have officially confirmed not one, but 2 joint practices this offseason, a rare change that instantly signals increased intensity and strategic preparation. The first joint practice will be against the Miami Dolphins, a team with speed, dynamic playmakers, and an elite offensive scheme that should give Detroit's defense all sorts of different looks. But that's not all. The Lions are doubling down with a second joint practice, this time with the Houston Texans. That's right, 2 joint practices, 2 very different offensive systems, and a huge opportunity for the Lions to refine their depth and execution ahead of the Hall of Fame game, which is just over 60 days away. This move breaks tradition. Normally, the Lions would engage in a 3-week OTA period. This year, it's been trimmed down to just 2. Why? Because of their early Hall of Fame game appearance. Of course, that means less time in controlled practice settings and a sharper focus on these 2 joint practice matchups to simulate real game tempo. Dan Campbell and the staff clearly aren't just looking to evaluate. They're going for high-octane, situational competition that challenges both starters and rotational players in ways that internal scrimmages simply can't replicate. There's history here, too. The last time the Lions went for multiple joint practices, fans will remember how fiery things got, especially when tensions boiled over in those matchups. One of the more infamous incidents came when a Giants tackle got physical, possibly giving a Lions player a concussion during an intense sequence. These aren't walkthroughs, these are full-speed, no-holds-barred sessions that test physicality, discipline, and cohesion. And while Campbell has been vocal in the past about keeping fights out of joint practices, history tells us tempers flare when pride, position battles, and roster spots are on the line. Houston Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans shared his enthusiasm about these joint practices, saying he's excited to match up against both the Lions and the Panthers. That's mutual respect. He specifically highlighted Dan Campbell's energy and leadership, calling it second to none, and praised the Lions as a rising franchise. Sentiments that carry weight coming from a coach who has already begun a serious rebuild in Houston. He also pointed out that these sessions allow both offensive and defensive units to face unfamiliar schemes in a controlled, non-live-on-the-quarterback environment, making it the safest and most efficient way to build real competitive reps. What's fascinating here is how this all plays into the Lions' momentum coming off last season. You can feel the buzz. There's anticipation. There's a hunger to take the next step. These joint practices offer a critical litmus test. How will the defense handle Miami's speed? Can Jared Goff command the offense under pressure against Houston's emerging defensive front? We've seen in the past that Goff has had tough days in joint practices. There was even a time against the Colts when he really struggled. But that's the point. It's about learning, adjusting, and sharpening the blade before it matters most. The real drama, though, might not even be between the players. It could come from the fans. Training camp dates haven't been announced yet, but fans are already eager for access, hoping these practices are open to the public. In past years, some joint practices were closed sessions, leaving fans clamoring for glimpses of the team in action. This time, there's hope that at least one of these matchups will be public, offering fans the rare chance to see how their team stacks up against legitimate NFL competition outside of preseason games. So, what do you think, Lions Nation? Is the addition of a second joint practice a bold power move that will help fine-tune this roster for a championship run? Or could it risk stirring up unnecessary injuries and distractions before the season even kicks off? And that's where the conversation gets even more intense. Because while the concept of joint practices seems like a win-win on paper, high-level competition, varied schemes, situational drills, the physical toll and emotional volatility of these sessions can't be ignored. We've seen it in past years, even under Dan Campbell's leadership, where despite a strict no-fighting policy, tensions erupted. And it's not just the rookies or fringe roster guys throwing hands. Starters get involved too, especially when pride gets tested. Think back to the reports of that confrontation, possibly with Terry and Arnold or someone else during a previous joint session. It shows just how quickly things can escalate. Now fast forward to 2025, and you're throwing this roster into live, padded practices against 2 extremely aggressive teams. The Miami Dolphins bring speed and complexity. The Houston Texans bring physicality and an up-and-coming defense. That's a volatile mix when you've got a Lions team hungry to prove they're not just contenders, they're Super Bowl material. Then there's the narrative angle. This isn't just any offseason. This is the year expectations are sky high. The Lions were within striking distance of a Super Bowl last season, and now, with that bitter taste still lingering, they're looking to make a statement. That means pressure. That means every rep matters. And Dan Campbell knows that iron sharpens iron. By facing off against not one, but two playoff-caliber teams before preseason even begins, he's sending a message to the league in his own locker room. This team is built different. And don't forget the evaluation side of it. These joint practices could play a major role in shaping the final 53-man roster. Coaches will get to see how rookies and fringe players react when the playbook isn't familiar, when the snap count isn't predictable, and when they're lining up against someone they haven't watched 50 times in film study. It's one thing to flash in camp against your teammates. It's another to stand out when you're lined up across from Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, or Will Anderson Jr. Let's not gloss over what this means for Jared Goff either. His performance in joint practices in previous seasons has been inconsistent, sometimes downright shaky. This year, he needs to show command, leadership, precision. These practices are as much about his preparation as they are about identifying depth at receiver, offensive line continuity, or defensive adjustments. With pressure mounting on Goff to solidify his status as the franchise QB, especially after the Lions passed on taking a QB high in the draft, this will be his stage to quiet any doubters. And yet, for all the competitive fire, there's a lingering question. Are the Lions playing with fire here? Could the physicality of two back-to-back joint practices lead to unnecessary injuries? Could the reduced OTA schedule leave players underprepared, causing these practices to become more chaotic than productive? Or could this bold strategy be the very thing that hardens the team, forging a battle-tested unit ready to steamroll into the Hall of Fame game and beyond? We've seen glimpses of how intense these joint practices can get. Coaches love them for the real-time adjustments they force. Players love them for the chance to hit someone new. But the stakes are high. Every snap, every rep, every route could be the difference between making the team and packing your bags. For the coaching staff, it's a critical period to measure chemistry, focus, and execution in live-action scenarios. So now the big question, will these joint practices be the turning point that sets the tone for a championship season, or will they open the door to chaos and risk that could derail everything before the season even starts? Let me know what you think, Lions fans. Are these joint practices the right move? Are you excited to see this team clash with the Dolphins and Texans before preseason action begins? Drop your thoughts below, and if you haven't yet, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out the next video on your screen. Go Lions!